So welcome to this lecture. I'm Javier de la Torre Costa, and I'm going to present digital technologies for neurorehabilitation. But first of all, why the need of these digital technologies? Well, there is no doubt that in recent years, advances in medicine, together with some technological developments, among other factors such as better alimentary habits, have led to an increased lifespan, at least in developed countries. However, this increased lifespan is not always necessarily accompanied by a better quality of life. And this is especially relevant in a context where the incidence of cardiovascular diseases is continuously increasing. For instance, stroke is now the leading cause of disability not only in Europe, but in worldwide developed countries, leading to around 1.1 million of inhabitants in Europe to experience it every year. Moreover, this is translated into huge costs to society that are not only related to direct healthcare costs, but also informal care or subsequent loss of productivity. So, what can we expect after a stroke? Although we should not take this curve as a rule of thumb, we see that when a patient suffers a stroke, they enter a process of rehabilitation treatment in which we see changes in function. Usually these changes are gains or improvement. However, we usually see a phenomenon that when this therapy ceases at end of therapy, some patients seem to worsen in their functional capabilities. For instance, they stop using their affected arm, and this is translated into a loss of neural representation, which leads to a vicious cycle. So this is moreover emphasized by a discharge from hospital care, which has been shown by recent evidence when patients are still sensitive to treatment. Why does this happen, and what can we do about it? So one of the reasons are limited resources at healthcare facilities, and especially under a situation of a global financial crisis such as the one we are living right now. For instance, we now know that COVID has a direct impact in stroke admissions and has had a widespread impact also on the delivery of stroke services. So all of these evidence or facts that we are presenting have led to a growing interest or the need of new solutions or new interventions that are based on principles that can be, one, provided at the house of the patient, extending rehabilitation periods, that can provide a robust assessment and continuous monitoring on patients' capabilities. Then we can also correlate this with clinical skills that we will see in other presentation, being tested using these validated scales. Then these treatments or these interventions can be personalized to each patient. They should be cost efficient so that they can be delivered to everybody, and then they can provide a better understanding on recovery dynamics. So technology per se is not useful if it's not based on evidence. So now we know by a recent review on the active ingredients or principles that neurorehabilitation treatment should include, a set of principles that promote the acquisition, retention, and generalization of new skills, and gives us some evidence to the design of these digital tools for neurorehabilitation. For instance, now we know that practice should be goal-oriented, that it must include action observations, for instance, through the use of virtual avatars, and we have conducted studies that analyze how can we promote this embodiment towards virtual avatars. They should modulate effector selection, for instance, encouraging participants in an implicit or explicit way to use their affected limb and not only compensate by the use of their healthy arm. Practice must be variable, so we should include a myriad of rehabilitation protocols that target also multisensory areas, as we will see later. They should adjust in difficulty, so deliver an optimal level of challenge depending on the capabilities of each patient, and provide multisensory feedback, which enhances plasticity of brain mechanisms that are later promoting recovery along different domains. So evidence from the inclusion of these principles that now you should be familiar with has led to a set of studies, for instance, in treating motor impairments by activities such as grasping balls that are bimanual, so patients have to use the affected or the unaffected limb. Protocols which include aphasia treatment in a way that it is a dyadic protocol, that patients interact with other patients in a more realistic environment than conventional therapies, which might just include, for instance, word retrieval. Or we can treat cognitive deficits such as attentional deficits, short-term memory deficits, semi-neglect, or executive functioning. So results, including all these active ingredients that we were commenting before, have shown positive results along these different domains. For instance, we can see that we can modulate the effector selection, and patients start using more their affected limb after, as compared to before the treatment, compared to conventional therapy groups or control groups. We can also see that in the long term, these dyadic treatments of aphasia that provide more realistic scenarios boost long-term retention as compared to control groups that go through conventional therapy. Or we can also see that these kind of virtual reality treatments that include the principles of neurorehabilitation can have positive benefits in modulating attention or generalized cognitive functions. So this is interesting, and this opens a myriad of possibilities using virtual reality technologies in an appropriate way to treat deficits after brain damage. But there are a lot of other options that these digital technologies are providing. For instance, in facilitating functional movements, we can see studies, and all of them follow these principles of reducing the cost of using the affected limb and increasing its probability of success. For instance, through exoskeletons, we see recent studies that use brain-computer interfaces compared, like controlled through the intentions of the users or of the patients to facilitate the movement of their upper extremities or lower extremities. We can also see this in the adaptive mapping in virtual reality, where we can manipulate sensory feedback to induce larger movements than the physical ones, and thus increase the probability of success when using the affected limb, and increasing the range of possibilities of the patient. And also in functional electrical stimulation, where specific muscles are stimulated in order to also enhance these functional movements or functional capabilities. This is just a set of examples on how these technologies can help the activities of patients, but we can also see other examples. For instance, there is a growing interest in the wearables and smartphones and smartwatches fields and their capabilities to provide, for instance, embedding rehabilitation into activities of daily living. And in doing so, we can also provide with longitudinal recordings of how patients are behaving at home. And this allows for two things. One, increasing the use of, for instance, the affected arm in the more realistic environment possible, that is the house of the patient and where rehabilitation should ideally be done. And another one is providing with data to empirically validate some of the very well-known predictions in the rehabilitation fields, such as the principle of use it or lose it, that links the use of the affected arm, for instance, with functional recovery. So this opens a vast set of possibilities and new data to explore and obtain new insights on how rehabilitation should be delivered. And we will see more of that in other lectures. And just a flavor of how these technologies can be combined with other fields. In this trend of serious gaming, there are principles gathered from different fields, such as adaptive difficulty theory, to provide an optimal level of challenge to to the users and thus boost this recovery, or decision making or habit formation that can be embedded in these wearable technologies where rehabilitation is happening at the house of the patient. For instance, modifying the frequency or the saliency of the feedback delivered to promote the adherence to positive routines. Just to close, there's also a debate in the field, or other technologies open the possibility of, for instance, transcranial direct current stimulation, which enhances cortical plasticity, but there is some debate on whether these technologies are actually beneficial or not. So a lot of basic research is still needed until we can fully develop or gain enough knowledge to develop personalized agents or intelligent rehabilitation coaches that we will see in more depth in other lectures, that can provide an optimal rehabilitation treatment based on each patient's specific necessities and capabilities and possibilities to improve. This would also help the decision making done at hospitals and reduce the cost of rehabilitation, making it more efficient. So thank you for listening and see you in other lectures.